Good day everyone. In this video, I'll be talking about two things. First, curriculum criteria, and then the second one is curriculum goals. Let us learn about the difference between these two terms. Let me talk about first curriculum criteria. Curriculum criteria, according to the Galea in his blog, refers to the guidelines or standards in curriculum decision making. So it is usually consisted of statements or questions assessing the goodness or how good a curriculum is. But according to the Galea as well, he said that the most important criteria of a curriculum are its objectives, because these are the basis for the learning achievement of the students. Meanwhile, according to Albior in her article, she said that curriculum could be viewed in two ways. And this could be from a view, macro view and micro view. So when we say macro, it is broader, like for example, the K-12 curriculum. And when we say micro, this is more specific, like for example, the K-12 curriculum, and under it, it has different subjects to be taught to achieve the goals of the K-12 curriculum. Okay, so the subjects being taught are what we consider as the micro curriculum. Now, this curriculum, according to Albior, has 7 criteria to test its goodness. First one is self-sufficiency. According to her, a good curriculum should be able to teach the students how to learn independently. So the content of your curriculum should be able to engage the students in a way that they will be able to explore things. And out of this exploration, they would be able to understand the things that they need to learn and apply it in their lives. Significant. A curriculum is significant if it would be able to develop the student holistically, meaning the content of your curriculum should be able to develop the cognitive, affective, and psychomotor domains of the students. Aside from these 3, it should also be cultural sensitive. It should consider the cultural aspect of the learners. And also, it should be able to relate with what's happening on the society. So that is what we mean by significant. The third one is validity. So the content of your curriculum should be valid. So when we say validity of the curriculum content, it talks about the relevance of the content with the current time. So we have to make sure that the content of the curriculum is updated. So like for example, if you are teaching an ICT subject, do not teach a student something that is already obsolete. Like for example, you will be teaching keyboarding techniques, but you will be using typewriter, and that is almost not being used nowadays. So do not teach things like that. Remember, what we are teaching to our students could affect their lives in the present, but also to the future. The fourth criteria, interest. So therefore, the content of the curriculum should be able to suit the interest of the learners. So this could be true if the curriculum is learner-centered, but for us, we follow a certain curriculum guide. But if we're going to study it, most of the content are learner-centered, and with the help of our methods and strategies, we could achieving the interest of the students. It talks about the usefulness of the content of your curriculum. So most of the time, students would only be engaged to study something if they find something useful, like for example, their perception towards the math subject, like for example, trigonometry. They are not so interested studying those topics because they cannot find its application in their lives. So as a teacher, we should be able to make them realize that these things would be useful in their life. So that is what we mean by utility. You have to ask yourself as well, are these things would be able to develop the potential of the kids? Will it be useful in their future job? So things like that, because those are the things that most students would ask to themselves when it comes to the utility of a curriculum. Is learnability. So the content of your curriculum should be within the level of your students. So you have to consider their level of thinking. So the psychology of learning theories would be very applicable to this, like the zone of proximal development, Piaget's development theories. So we have to consider these things when we outline our curriculum. So it refers to the full implementation of your curriculum. So when you outline a curriculum, it should be within what's happening in the society. It's more of contextualization. You should take note that the student should be able to learn within their available resources and allowable time. A perfect example is what's happening right now. So there are a lot of argument, negotiation regarding the opening of classes and mode of learning to happen this time of pandemic. So with that, what happened is the DepEd have prescribed the MELCs, or the most essential learning competencies, in which we will not be following this school year the curriculum guide that we used to follow during the previous year. So we will be following the MELCs, wherein there's already reduced learning competencies, because that would be the only things to be allowed to be learned by the students given this situation. So that is what we mean by feasibility. So those are the criteria for curriculum to test if it is good. Okay, now curriculum goals. So this is different from curriculum criteria. So again, when we say curriculum criteria, these are the standards or guidelines of how good a curriculum is. Meanwhile, when we say curriculum goals, it refers to the statement saying what the department or program will do, or what the students will do in order for them to gain knowledge. But according to UNESCO's International Bureau of Education, it is more of pertaining to a group rather than the individual achievement of the students. Like for example, it always says students should be able to show appreciation with music and literature. Students should be able to respect each other's culture. So things like that. So it's more of group or broad statements of what they would like to achieve. Moreover, UNESCO's International Bureau of Education defined curriculum goals as setting measurable expectations. So how they could measure this expectation? It is through the learning outcomes, product or performance, and processes. So these are the ways on how they could measure those expectations. Okay, so like for example, in the K-12 curriculum, if you would observe the curriculum guide per subject, there are performance standards, there are content standards, and then there are learning outcomes. So if the students were able to do the learning outcomes, so that means they have achieved or they have met the standards of that particular topic. Okay, so the standards are their expectations, and for them to measure if those expectations are achieved, they have provided learning outcomes, that once a student have done it or achieved it or completed it, that means they have met the standard or the expectation. Okay, so that is curriculum goals. Now, like for example, the K-12 curriculum, it also has its own goals, curriculum goals. So in 2012, through the enactment of Republic Act 10533, the educational system has been reformed, and that is what we know now as the K-12 curriculum. And since this is a curriculum, it also has its goals. It has also outlined the statements saying what they would like to achieve through this program. And One of those is providing quality basic education that every Filipino is entitled to. The second one is create functional basic educational system which would provide productive and responsible citizens equipped with necessary competencies and knowledge. Then the third one is give students an opportunity to be educated through quality education wherein the curriculum is already decongested. So it has been talked about a lot of times that the curriculum is spiral in nature, meaning there is no repetition of topics anymore. It's more of spiral, so it's decongested. Okay, then the fourth one is change the public perception about high school education. So it's not just merely about preparation for college education, but also it could help a student to establish a career or employment. So these are the goals of the K-12 curriculum. So these are specific verbs what they would like to achieve through this program, like provide, create, give, change. So those are the things that they would like to happen. Those are the things that they would like to achieve, and those are what we call curriculum goals. However, for these objectives to be achieved under the K-12 curriculum, there are also micro-curriculum, and each of those also have specific goals, like for example the subjects. Let's take example the TLE curriculum goals. Mainly, this subject would like to achieve the following. So the first one is to develop technical skills, meaning they would like to provide students with test-based skills like mensuration and calculation, the use of basic tools, so things like that. Okay, then aside from that, through TLE subject, they aim to develop livelihood skills. So that's why most TLE subjects have incorporation. All TLE subjects have incorporation of entrepreneurship concepts like personal entrepreneurial competencies, market, and environment. Okay, so those are examples of curriculum goals here in the Philippine setting, basic education. Okay, so that concludes my report. So again, curriculum criteria are the standards or guidelines to assess how good a curriculum is. While when we say curriculum goals, these are the expectations that we would like to achieve or to meet with the help of our curriculum. And that's the end of my report. I hope you have learned something.